after the recitation of the terms of the treaty, which is the laws that we looked at last time, and the blessings and the curses, which we talked about last time, Moses returns to some final exhortations. Right? This is the moment of decision. Right? I've done the preamble, I've done the historical thing, I've done all the work. It's now time to sign the treaty. It's time to affirm the covenant. You are assembled today, here, all of you, to enter into the covenant of the Lord your God, sworn by an oath that God is making with you today. And it's really here, I think, for the first time, it's really here that although Moses in the story is speaking to the Israelites assembled at the edge of the promised land, it really starts to feel here like the text is speaking to whoever is reading it. We're all in the wilderness on the edge of the promised land, is what I'd say if I were like a preacher trying to dredge up some emotion out of Deuteronomy, right? We all are standing on the edge of the promised land together. We've just come through our wilderness. And here again is this choice that is before Israel and before every reader and hearer of D. I have set before you today life and prosperity, death and adversity. But still, it's hardly a choice. Who's choosing death? But we might note here, as we could have actually a few times before, how much Deuteronomy refers to the land, right? The connection between obedience and life in the land. It's at least a couple of times in here, sort of 4 or 5 lines down. The Lord your God will bless you in the land you are entering to possess. And a couple of lines later, you shall not live long in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to enter and possess. And at the end, so you may live in the land the Lord swore to give to your ancestors. Right? Land and obedience really go together. Again, for the audience in the story, that's this new promised land of Canaan. Right? They're like looking ahead to this place they've never been. For the audience of the book, it's the land that they're in right now. And it's not how do we survive, it's not how do we obey such that we enter and possess the land. It's how do we avoid the fate of the northern kingdom? How do we stay in the land? How do we avoid exile at the hands of the Assyrian Empire? Well, this book tells us how. It's the same choice that our ancestors faced with Moses. They were disobedient, as the text says repeatedly. We have also been disobedient, but they entered the land and they stayed in it up till now, until us. Maybe we can stay in it too. And then at the end, really a final touch that I consider, it's like one of my favorite parts of the book. After all the laws and all the exhortations and all the reminders of Israel's disobedience, Moses and God and the book itself, Deuteronomy itself, declare all of this attempt to convince the people to obey, basically to be for naught. God says to Moses, when you die, I know that this people is going to disobey. They're going to break the covenant. They are going to forsake me, and it will be bad. And he even has Moses write down a song. The song is in Deuteronomy 32, which I didn't have you read. It's kind of a slog and hard to follow. But he has him write down this song as proof. The song basically says, God did all these good things for you, and you screwed it up. Right? Which is, I guess, fairly standard song structure back in ancient Israel. The idea is that God is composing this song in advance, knowing that they're going to screw up. And so when they do, this song, which exists and is contained exclusively in this book, in D, this song will be there as a witness that God knew from the beginning that it would end this way. Okay. So, when you've screwed up and you're like, but why did this happen? It's like, I told you, right? I knew it from the get-go. And then Moses gets in on the act. Again, going back to where he started with the sort of recognition of Israel's disobedience back with the spies. I know how rebellious and stubborn you are. You've been this rebellious while I'm still alive. How much more so are you going to do this after my death? Right? You people are the worst. And that's how you've been while I've been with you. Me, Moses, right? The greatest dude you'll ever know. When I am gone, you guys are so screwed. Once D sets this all out, it's essentially a affirmed its own success. If the people change their behavior after having read Deuteronomy and everything goes well, then hooray, right? That's what Deuteronomy wanted to accomplish in the first place, right? They're obeying the laws and things are going well for them. And if the people don't change, and as D itself predicts that they won't, and if things go terribly wrong, as historically they did, then hooray, D was right. The theological position of reward and punishment for obedience and disobedience is going to be affirmed either way. But disobedience is the default assumption, which, to be fair, is pretty true, I think, to human behavior. Deuteronomy demands obedience and allegiance like a king demanding fealty. But it is very ready for Israel's disobedience and rebellion. It really wants you, the reader, Israel, to do what it says, to follow its laws. And it has designed its own message to say that if Israel should ever fail as a state, it will be understood to be because they didn't follow D's laws closely enough. It's like it wants obedience, but it's very ready for disobedience. And so to conclude, I didn't go short, I went long. To conclude, this is for D not mere historical curiosity. Right? D, as we saw last time, encodes within it its own repetition, right? It's to be read publicly every 7 years. The king is supposed to read it daily. It's supposed to be memorized and passed down from parent to child and constantly on your mind. It's not just said to Israel standing on the edge of the promised land. We, the reader, are, by virtue of having read Deuteronomy, we are being brought into the covenant, right? We're being given the choice. Right? D has Moses say to Israel, someday you'll be in the promised land. Are you going to remember or are you going to forget? So that's us. We, the readers, are the ones in the promised land. I mean, quite literally for the original audience, but conceptually for all of us, we're the ones who are being called to remember. We're the ones who are supposed to not become complacent, to not forget that we're only here in this promised land because God did this thing for us way back in Egypt and in the wilderness. And even though Deuteronomy tells us that it's an almost unwinnable battle, right? We're almost doomed to fail, it says here at the end. The fact of the matter is, the text's continued existence means that we never quite cross that line of failure. Every time we read the text, we're being told, I know that in the future, you're going to fail. But for now, I'm giving you the choice. As long as Deuteronomy exists, we're always just leaving the wilderness and standing at the edge of the promised land.